Hi.
Call is now being recorded.
Welcome to everyone on this session at Flame by Dr. Kenneth. As per the routine of these online sessions, we'll go with introduction of the Flame, followed by welcoming our guest speaker today, and we'll hand over the platform to our guest speaker then to continue on with the further proceedings. You're most welcome to ask any questions if you need to participate. During the lecture, you're most welcome. And if you can hold your question towards the end of the presentation, that's an option also as well. Because towards the end, we'll have one more Q&A session for 15 minutes. So it's totally up to you if you want to participate while the topic is being presented, or if you want to hold your question, you're most welcome. So here's a little bit of introduction to where we are at the moment. This is the Forum for Leadership and Managerial Excellence. Fine. As you can see, FLAME stands for Forum for Leadership and Managerial Excellence, and our logo is Together We Glow. FLAME envisions to be a credible and a respected forum for leadership and educational excellence, which allies approach with trust and confidence, and which is translated into the mission of providing a contemporary forum for fueling leadership and educational excellence through mutually rewarding and trusted partnerships, leading to professional advancement and capacity building of its allies, thereby living the Flame's logo of Together We Glow. And this is like further translated into 5 strategic pathways for Flame, of which the first one is the fostering school excellence, leading innovation in vocational education and training, advancement in workplace performance, mastery through continuous professional development, CPD, and finally engagement in research and conferences. So these all 5 together form Flame as well. So I'll come to these pathways one by one to just introduce to you what we do in these 5 pathways. First of all, fostering school excellence. We aim at developing school management, what we call a school leadership, by setting up integrated school development system designed by the Flame industry experts on how to develop schools, how to develop 6 cardinals in unison. So all the cardinals develop in steps, and none of the cardinals take over, and none of the cardinal is left behind. So we train school leadership on how to implement this system, and how to manage, and how to execute, and how to control this system. Ultimately, leading the schools towards preparation for ISO 21001. That's an option, not a compulsion. But our system prepares schools for getting ISO certification as well. So the other cardinal is the developing school. Teachers or faculty development. This is one of the, as we feel, is one of the ignored areas in most of the schools, where teachers' careers are they become professionally stagnant. No development takes place, hence frustration and demotivation. So we consider teachers as one of the important cardinals, and we recommend conducting these skills for teachers. You can see a list here. This is not the final and exhaustive list. We can add on competencies, skills, emerging skills, and whatever skills the school considers is essential for developing its teachers. And the next thing is the most important, the component of school are the students. And we say that the students are the kings of an education institution. The school is for the students. Teachers are for the students. The curriculum is for the students, and everything in school is for the students. But unfortunately, what we have seen is most of the schools focus only on students' grades, examination results, leading to high grades once they graduate, but poor, I would say, life skills or interpersonal skills. So we recommend developing students on the skills listed in front of you. And you would see that these are the skills the students very badly need when they step out of the schools. Even, I would say at a university level, when the graduates leave the universities, they are lacking in these skills. Because of this, they face hardships in their practical life outside the university. The next one is the curriculum, which is taught to the carried on. It has to be value-added to make it creative, innovative, and an area for students to just learn beyond the books, and ultimately it has to become student-centered learning. And then the learning resources, they should be commensurate with the teachers' development, student development, and curriculum development. Because if resources are lagging behind those three more important cardinals, the other cardinals may not be able to work properly. And the final one is a stakeholder development, parents, societies, governments. I mean, you've seen schools focusing only on one-way communication or a broadcast to the parents. Like one of the very favorite broadcasts is the parent-teacher meeting. Parents come straight in front of the teachers, get the results, and go back. Little to participate in school, running of the school, and management of the school. So that's where we think that stakeholders are an important resource of schools, which can contribute, participate, and even sit at the managerial and leadership boards to improve schools. So these are the 6 cardinals which we believe a school should have and should develop in steps. Next one is the education, the vocational education, more or less same. Only you will see the difference in the institute management. There we had integrated school development system. Here we have strategic training evaluation management system, STEMS, which again is developed by the industry experts at Flame. And here we prepare vocational education institutes to aim for ISO 29993-2017. Again, this is an option, but if they follow the system which we set up, they are almost 90% ready to get ISO certification. That's a feather to the added to the cap also. Rest all the 5 cardinals being the same, because again it is an education institute, would remain same. Then we focus on the workplaces outside the institute also, the schools, universities also. We look at the, again, setting up of the training and management system and the training of the management, human resource development, job skills training, comms and IT skills training, CPD for the human resources, and leadership training. And again, this list can be added upon. We can add n number of skills and competencies here. The next one is the, again, for the professionals who want to pursue the CPD other than the work organizations. To deepen expertise and sustain professional growth. And then the CPD pathways which we are aiming are the business leadership and management, education and training, healthcare and life sciences, soft skills and human capital development, engineering and industrial skills, technology and digital transformation, and finance and compliance. So these are the pathways we are aiming at. Next cardinal is the research and conferences, of which the first one is the Journal of Leadership and Education Excellence. That's a tri-annual journal with 4 axes, which means we issue 3 issues in a year. There are 4 axes of this journal. First one is from the front lines, is a place for industry leaders to publish their expertise, their views, their thoughts, the reason behind their success, and all these things. Next one is the from the field, where we gather a practical insight by the professionals who can contribute their articles, share their thoughts, their ideas, their experiences, or how they feel, how they work in the professions. Next one, we do not forget the students also. We come back to the universities now, and we call it the emerging scholars, which we invite the university students to publish their research. I mean, this is not, I would say, your recognized journal for publishing your article for the sake of your degree or your thesis, but this does provide a platform for the students to at least make their voices heard across their industry and among the professional industry leaders. And last one, again, you'll be surprised, we come back to the schools where, the high school level, we call it Next Gen Forum, where we invite articles by school students. Young minds, who can, we encourage them to write whatever they can on the school life, education, teaching, extracurricular, whatever, and publish with us. So as you would see, I call it from classroom to boardroom. And this is a place for the entire range of your society who want to publish and share their thoughts. Now, this is the first, we call it the inaugural launch. It's a volume 1, issue 1, April 2026. When inviting teachers, students, and everybody concerning the theme itself named to contribute articles. And this first journal is featuring Dr. Ataur Rahman, Dr. Kenneth. Dr. Ataur Rahman is the ex-chairman, Higher Education Commission, and ex-minister for Science and Technology, and he's the leading scientist of Pakistan nowadays. We conducted his interview very kindly. He just agreed and consented to get his interview recorded. So his interview will be recorded here. And I'm grateful to you, Dr. Kenneth, for also contributing an article for this journal, and this will be published here. And we have over 30 Flame members who are also contributing now to this first issue of the first volume of this journal. We are aiming to hold annual conferences on 3 different themes: a Flames Conference on Leadership Excellence, Flames Conference on Educational Excellence, and Flames Young Leader Conferences. We haven't started these yet because we're just into our infancy stage. And step by step, with first the online sessions, second the journal, and third aim is the conduct of the conferences. We'll start online in the beginning, and later stage we may go to on-campus face-to-face conferences. We are open to partnerships and accreditations, to build strategic partnerships and securing international accreditations, aligning with globally recognized standards, creating excellence through world-class standards. And this is coming up. We're talking to some organizations in UK, Ireland, Malaysia, and UAE as well, to partner with us, and we can hold the accreditations and provide these accreditations to our members. That's all from the Flame side. Thank you very much. And here's a with introduction of our worthy speaker today, Dr. Kenneth. He has very kindly consented to lead an online session today. The topic is Beyond Marketing and Expansion, a strategic framework for sustainable school growth. Dr. Kenneth is the head of school designate at a school in Slovenia. He has nearly 30 years of international leadership and teaching experience across Europe, Asia, Australia, and America. His work focuses on pedagogy, organizational improvement, and practical wise leadership for complex dilemmas. He holds a DBA in competitive and strategy analysis and publishes on leadership practice and school strategy. His book, Wise Leadership in Education, is in press. So we're lucky to have you, Dr. Kenneth, today. Your profile speaks of your excellence, of your stature in your industry, and we're lucky to have you here today. I'm sure there's a lot to learn from our community from you today. Dr. Kenneth, over to you now.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll wait until the presentation's up.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but yeah, my teaching career started back in about 1998. I had originally started out in hospitality management, and I played competitive badminton for a number of years. And then as my competitive badminton career was winding down, I had a chance to immigrate to Australia, and that's where I did my initial teacher training. And that took place in 1997, and I've been in education and career training ever since. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today is actually based on my doctoral research, where I looked at international school markets in various cities, both small cosmopolitan cities and very large metropolitan areas. So the thing is, when we're talking about schools, international schools, they are in a competitive environment, especially today with every year new schools opening up. And for a school to take a wide-ranging approach trying to grab market share, often they're not aligning with what's actually happening in the market in terms of their facilities and the programs they're offering and the tuition level. And so it's important to understand when a school is opening, or a school is already open but competing with other schools in the market, that there's an understanding of what the structure means and what a school can try to achieve. So for a school to be sustainable, there's basically 4 areas that need to be addressed. The first one is, what's the strategic group that the school is actually part of? And that's not typically a city-wide group. Often the group is constrained not only by tuition fees, but also geography and distance from each other. The second is, within that strategic group, what is the position of the school? What makes them different from the other schools in that strategic group? Then the capabilities, what the capabilities the school has that make it different and make it attractive within the market, particularly to parents. And then constraints. This is looking at what might be holding a school back from achieving the capacity that it should have. So while a school might have a great athletic facility, if it doesn't have the right coaches, then those athletic facilities actually are not producing anything of value to the school. So we'll go on to the next slide. So when we're looking at this problem of how do we establish a sustainable position in the market, we have to look at 4 steps. So we have to look at choosing the strategic group that we're in, choose the position within that group. We need to look at building the capability that we're planning for. And then we have to find, once we're operating, what are the constraints that are stopping us from establishing that sustainability, particularly where we're trying to differentiate ourselves from the competitors in our strategic group. And of course, this has to be sequenced. We need to look at why would schools fail when the growth is not strategic. And we can go on to the next slide. Okay, so often schools, when they're operating or they're planning to open, they look at, oh, we'll do more marketing, we'll spend more money on marketing, or we're going to add programs, or we're going to adjust our fees, or we even change brand names, all of which I've seen in my research. And these are individual actions that a school might take, or a singular action that the school will take, and it's not being strategic. And if anything, it disturbs and confuses the image, the brand, and the product that or service that you're offering to the market. So when schools try to increase their enrollment strictly by more marketing or adding more programs, that actually can be counterproductive to developing a sustainable program and through a strategic approach. So we can go on to the next. Okay. This is when we're talking about strategic groups. What is that group and where are we competing? So we really need to identify what group of competitors we actually want to go up against, or what's the group of competitors that's developing around us if we're already an established school. And there are a number of criteria that a school should look at and say, who are our real competitors? And some of this will be fairly obvious when you are in a metropolitan area, which schools are not too far away that are offering the same academic program, and which schools are of a similar tuition level. But also simply asking parents who are visiting the school, what other schools are you considering? And once you've asked 20 or 30 parents who visited, what other schools are you considering, you'll get a clear picture of who the parents are considering are within their reach. And that will then give you a strong idea of, okay, these are our competitors, and these are the folks that the organizations that we have to look at and say, how can we be different? So how do we really win? Well, we have to establish for ourselves, is our school actually different or not? And that then guides us into, okay, what are our best resources, what are our capabilities, and what can we do to build those and make those more obvious in the marketplace that we're competing in. And then what is blocking the performance? Again, I alluded to the sports analogy where you have these extensive sport facilities, but there's actually no programming other than the normal physical education classes. You don't have athletic teams that are making use of them. You haven't brought in coaches or PE teachers who are excellent coaches in particular sports. So that beautiful facility is not actually producing any results that would become part of your image, your brand, and then your marketing. And then, yeah, okay. So the core strategic problem is misalignment. Basically that if a school doesn't look at lining up these four things, the strategic group, the position within that group, developing the capabilities that were built in, or maybe you have potential for, and then eliminating constraints one by one, then what happens is the efforts are not aligned. They're not strategic, and so not very productive in the long run. So the bullet points here, you know, I've seen schools where they're just about enrollment, and what ends up happening is they have students that in the school that they actually cannot support. So for example, it's very common for schools, private schools, to accept a lot of special needs students, but they don't have a well-developed SEN program. They don't have enough professionals to address those students' needs. And so that gradually diminishes the reputation of the school. Okay. So first, I'd like to ask from our gallery, what growth activities have you experienced or seen in schools that are mistaken for strategy? Either
any participant, any questions? Yes, open for discussion now before we move on.
Yeah, questions or comments on what you've experienced in schools, that what the schools have attempted to do to increase the enrollment, increase the profitability, and yet it's not actually strategic.
I've seen schools focusing too much on student grades only, and through extra classes, to extra coaching and repetitive working on the past papers. And I think this is a strategy to outperform other competitors. It does work, but it's not long lasting, I would say. It's not a win-win situation for schools, I suppose.
Well, certainly, you know, universities look for more rounded students, not just the grades. And if you're a school where most of your parents are expecting to send their children overseas to universities in Europe or Canada, America, the UK, then students who are more well-rounded, those students are going to be more successful when they get to university, because at home, in their home country, there's a whole support structure around them. And when they go off to another country, they don't have that support structure. So having a student that's more well-rounded and is developing the life skills, they're much better prepared when they go to an international university.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Anyone else, please?
Sir, I just want to mention a school in Karachi. I will take 1 or 2 minutes if allowed. It was a very reputed college, I would say, and but they were due to inflation, they were feeling a bit crunch on expenditures. So they tried to increase the registration of the students, and what they did is, though they were focusing on all-round development of the students, but what they did is that they, for example, they had 30 classrooms, and they gave admissions to the number of students which could be accommodated in 40 rooms. And then they rotated. Some of the students those who would go to the labs, their vacant rooms will be occupied by the other students. So this way they increased their number and fulfilled their financial needs. But they faced problems. I mean, in terms of discipline, the classes were stuffy and there was a lot of noise around in the corridors and everywhere. Then what they did is, just to engage the students in the classrooms, they engaged the teacher in the development program, like they conducted a session for the teachers, how to engage the students, how to be interactive with the students, and they are just struggling with it. I don't know will the strategy work or not? It's yet to be seen. I just quoted an example, since you were discussing the strategic direction for the school.
I would go ahead, continue.
No, it's okay, sir. I just want to give this example that is it right to the right strategy or not? I don't know.
Well, if a school has the flexibility of empty classrooms, that's certainly a valid goal to increase enrollment. But the school at the same time has to look at what does that increase in students mean for the school? What's the change in demand on the resources? And if a school is going to increase the enrollment so dramatically, so you're saying from 30 classrooms to 40 classrooms, well, that's a very large increase. So part of that developing or building an increase in the enrollment is you're actually going to have the school's going to have to spend more money. You can't say, well, we're going to increase the school by a third or a fourth and not increase the teaching staff to accommodate that higher demand. Support structures, more counselors, ostensibly more facility staff, because there's going to be more cleaning involved. So while they're increasing their revenue, they actually have to think about increasing the expenditures to some degree to handle this larger group of students. So if that school just increased the enrollment but had not planned out what were going to be the higher demands in what areas of the school, then they weren't being very strategic. And so now they're we say putting out fires. And that's going to, of course, damage the reputation of the school, because the parents who had children there already will be disappointed that their children are not getting the same level of service because the school's more crowded and maybe more stretched in terms of human resources, but also in terms of the monitoring of the kids and supporting the kids. So
Can we move on to next session, Dr. Kenneth?
Sure, unless there are any other questions. Okay. So when the first thing is the school needs to choose, if they're coming into the market, they need to choose which group of competitors they're going to enter. Or if they're already established, they need to recognize who their competitors are or who's coming into their competitive group, so that they can come up with a series of initiatives that will strategically strengthen their position in that group. Remembering that when we're talking about strategic groups typically are not very large. And this is going to be partially a factor of distance, because a family is not going to go from one side of Karachi all the way to the other side for school. That's unlikely. Certainly that's what I found in both small cities and large cities. There's going to be a travel dynamic. How long does it take them to take their child to the school, or how long does it take their child to ride transport to the school and back? And certainly cities that have a lot of congestion, a very long rush hour, that circle of competitors is going to be typically smaller. So it's very possible that a school is going to have other schools literally next door, but they're not competitors because their tuition is different. Maybe their academic program is different. So for example, IB schools are typically only competing with other IB schools, because a parent who chooses an IB program has different priorities and wishes than the parent who chooses the British A levels. So you could have a British school and an IB school literally within walking distance, and they're not competing for the same students. So this gets to, or we have here the rule of 3. And now the rule of three actually came out back in, I think, the 70s from the Boston Consulting Group, and then it was redefined and enhanced in the early 2000s. And basically what it says is, in a competitive group or a marketplace, there's only three generalists or three generalist organizations that can sell their product or provide their services. And then there's going to be niche players who have a relatively small portion of the market. And if you're not one of the three generalists, you're going to struggle. If you're either a generalist in the top three or you're a niche player offering something very specific, those are the schools or the organizations that are going to be successful. If you're kind of in the middle between the generalists and the niche players, you're not in a survivable position. Typically, when you have a stable group in terms of competition, there'll be one school that might have 40% or more of the market, and then the next generalist will have maybe 20 to 30%, and then the third generalist might have 10 to 20% of the market. It's a little bit flexible, but once a generalist provider goes below 10%, they fall into what's called the pit or the valley, and they're either going to have to fight to get back into the top three, or they should shift to the niche operation, or maybe they should consider changing into another competitive group. So generally a competitive group, you've got three generalists who can survive in terms of competition, and niche players can do so. Strategic groups are generally shaped by these filters. So the first one is the tuition. There's going to be a range of tuitions that parents are going to be willing to pay, and they're only going to consider schools within that upper and lower boundary that fits their budget. Curriculum identity. So in Malaysia, the predominant curriculum for international schools is the British A levels and the British IGCSE. But when you go to Singapore, the really competitive curriculum is the IB. So that goes back to what are the parents looking at. So in Malaysia, what I found was that families from Europe who were residing in Malaysia, they were very IB oriented, but local families were much more oriented towards the British system and sending their children to the UK universities. So looking at that, if you're in a city that does have a large expat population from Europe, then an IB program might be very attractive. But if you're looking at a piece of property, or your school is already located in an area where you don't have a lot of expatriates, then quite possibly the British system is going to be more attractive. Okay. So the geography comment here is that, yes, parents are probably going to limit their travel to the school, commuting to the school. So around every parent, there's going to be a circle of how far they'll drive to access education. And so a school has to look and say, well, we have a circle around us, and if the family's not inside that travel circle, then we're not competing for them. Now, this is going to be a bit more specific to a city, because in some cities, maybe families are used to traveling farther. But in Malaysia, we had one city where the competing schools fit within 15 kilometers of each other. In Kuala Lumpur, that was a little bit larger, it was about 20 kilometers that parents might be willing to travel. So a school had to look at who their potential competitors were in terms of that distance. Okay. And then the fourth one here, basically, if you start asking your parents or your prospective parents who they are considering, who else they're looking at, you're going to get a pretty good idea of who your competitors are. And we can go on. Yeah. Okay. Now, when we talk about choosing the competitive group you want to get into, here's some thoughts about why you might be in the wrong group, and what is the right group. So you want to look at the tuition. You want to look at the results. So if your results don't match the group, then you might be, so for example, let's say in Singapore, there are some schools that are very, very high performing, and a school that wants to open in that general area where those high performing schools are probably shouldn't try to take them head on with the same academic program, because they're going to be immediately compared to these established schools that are already high achieving, and they won't be able to attract anybody. So if they look at where they're going to build the school, they need to look at the competitors in that area and say, okay, if they're already well established, maybe we don't want to compete directly with them. We want to offer them something else in terms of an academic program, or maybe we want to go into a niche. Maybe we want to have a more specialized school, whether it's specifically science, hard sciences, or biomedical sciences, or maybe we're looking at the arts and we're going to have a music and art program. What's going to make that your school stand out? So this also goes the same for schools that are already established. When competitors are coming in, how do you make sure that you're still maintaining your presence in the market, that everybody knows what you're accomplishing and what you stand for? Okay, so your first decision really is not about are you growing? What do you have to do? What singular things you can do to try and grow? You have to look at what's your marketplace that you're wanting to compete in, and then you make decisions from there. We can go on. Okay, so before we move on, how should a school know which competitors belong in its strategic group? Can anybody think of your own situation and who your competitors are and what makes them your competitor?
Please go ahead, anyone. Dr. Kenneth, in my experience as a parent here in UAE, I think the groups are formed primarily by the curriculum they deliver. Because as an expat here, certainly I would be looking less at a local curriculum and more at the curriculum which would give a sort of flexibility to my kids to just move outside UAE and look at universities maybe in the West, in the East, in Pakistan, back home. So here, I think the grouping is mostly based upon the curriculum. This is one thing. Second thing is the location also, because although in UAE there's a lot of traveling, but because there's a lot of traveling, the traffic becomes a big issue as well. So the other thing is, like, schools within the city, they compete with each other, and schools in the peripherals of the city, they compete with each other. So in my view, the curriculum and the geographical location are the two. I mean, the fee is like is a concern. I mean, but not a competing factor, because certainly if you're aiming at a high quality school, you have to accept it comes with a price tag.
Mm-hmm. And what?
Sir,
Go ahead.
May I add?
Yeah, please go ahead. Faisal, go ahead.
I am Faisal. To your question, as shown on slide, as I understand, with respect to Pakistan, I would say, apart from location and apart from the curriculum, there is a concern of fee as well, because if we compare the private schools are all teaching the same curriculum, O levels, A levels, and the same line, same track they are following. Most of the school chains here in Pakistan, But the factor concerning people is also the fee here from that perspective, because traveling is not such a big issue because there are schools everywhere. There are branches of schools everywhere around in bigger cities. As far as the middle tier or the lower tier schools are concerned, there people have less resources to pay, and they cannot afford the O levels or A levels, so they go through the matriculation like 10th grade and FSC, like local Pakistani system of education, and they have to compete with each other in that domain. That is the difference, I would say.
Yeah. So the thing is, when schools are very similar in what they offer, very similar in the facilities they have, very similar in maybe the extracurricular programs, then for many parents, the decision is what's the cheaper option. And so for a school that's in that type of group where the fees are what's the major deciding factor for the parents, their strategy needs to be how are we going to make ourselves different from these other schools that parents are going to. And so that's what we're looking at. Because schools will, even though they look the same, they will have different competencies or different resources and potential that's different and can make them stand out within that group.
Madam Nadia, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Iftikhar, for giving me a chance. I think let me explain first of all how parents choose the schools. So parents choose, schools due to multiple reasons. Some fall for reputable brand names, as this is what is happening in Pakistan. Some go after fancy buildings and what is portrayed on social media. And for some parents, tuition is of course a big important thing. And of course, many think of feasibility and access to the schools as well. And as far as what is written in the previous slide, curriculum identification, yes, parents also give importance to that. That what their children would be taught in the schools. But there are also parents who are most after for how their kids are more secured, how they will be morally sound in those schools. There are a few schools, as I know, but not more, because most of the schools, they are after just getting the money, but there are very few schools who own the students. This is practically, I have experienced that what is lacking in the school is that they don't own the students, but they are more after the money. So there are multiple reasons why parents choose the schools. There is no only one reason that is important for that for the parents.
Thank you much. Thank you. Dr. Kenneth, please. Dr. Kenneth.
Well, you're right. And this is that parents will consider a variety of factors when they're looking for a school. And this is where the school has to be looking at their program and what can they do that will make them different. So this is the idea of differentiation, but it's got to be based on what resources or strengths the school has available. So for example, in my current school, we have a teacher who's teaching music who was actually a professional opera singer. And so what we're doing is we're now realigning the music curriculum to be more vocally based, so that starting in the late PYP, the late primary years, there's a lot of singing going on, and that way as the students move through the years, they're going to access higher and higher levels of music because of the teacher that we have as a resource. And so this year we've already had what we've done is the teacher started taking students to singing competitions. So after another couple of years, this program's going to grow. In addition, being a small school, we look for teachers who are multi-skilled. And so we look at somebody who not only has an economics and mathematics degree from London School of Economics, but that person also has a particular other skill that we're looking at building a program around. And these are programs that other private schools, our competitors, simply don't have.
Can we vote, Dr. Kenneth?
Sure, we can move forward. Let's see. Once you know who your competitors are, or which group you're moving into, or who's coming into your group, then you have to start looking at what is your position. So this coming from the business world, where we talk about the segment, the target, and the position. So you segment the market. So in our case, we're talking about the different groups that schools are in, and then targeting who are you really looking for as the student body, and then the position. What does make you different? What position can you establish that nobody else can touch? So, for example, for us, having this professional singer, who, by the way, also happens to be a lawyer, you know, having her establish the music program, nobody else will be able to compete with that in any of the international schools here in Ljubljana. So we're going to have a position where we have an arts program that none of the other fee-paying schools can offer. And so we're expanding in terms of music, but we're also expanding in other areas of the arts, which will give us a position that's recognizable. If your child is talented in the arts, this is the school that offers the program for them. So choosing the position that's going to work. So when we talk about positioning and we talk about a group, remembering that in a competitive group, the generalist needs to basically offer everything. And that's often the school in today's world that is buying the brand name from the UK or Finland or somewhere else. They're saying we're the school that offers the Finnish curriculum. We're the school that offers the Australian curriculum. And those schools tend to be generalist. The specialist needs to be very specific. What are they promising the parents that they'll be able to provide their kids? So schools that really do have a very strong STEM program or robotics program, something that's verifiable, these schools might be have a niche position, and maybe a relatively small percentage of the market, maybe 5 to 7% of the total enrollment in their competitive group. That's where they're sitting. But of course, as a niche player or a high quality program, they're probably charging higher tuition. The organization that kind of sits between the top 3 generalists and the niche players at the other end of the enrollment spectrum, the middle actor is not going to survive. They're going to struggle year to year. So the key here when you're talking about being a generalist or a specialist is, can you be in the top 3 generalists? If not, then being a specialist is the way to go, or you actually jump to another competitive group. So for an example of that, there's a school in Malaysia that has Olympic quality sports resources in terms of they have Olympic sized pool, 50 meters, along with some other pools on the campus. They have a synthetic playing field inside of a synthetic grass field for football inside of a Olympic sized running track. And this school actually was relatively high priced, but they were in a part of the section of the town where you didn't have the higher social economic families. They're actually on the other side of town. And so this school never actually reached a even break even. Now, my suggestion to them was, you need to change to another competitive group. You already have these awesome resources. Change to a cheaper competitive group, and now you have resources that those competitors don't have. They don't have the field, they don't have the large swimming pool, and so you could change the competitive group and attract those families who are paying less, but they will now come to you because you're offering more for their dollar, so to speak. Instead, what they did was they rebranded, didn't go anywhere. Rebranded again, haven't gone anywhere. Now they've essentially eliminated all of their expatriate teaching staff, and they've gone to a local model. So, but they're still not making use of their facilities. So this is the point. You know, when you have resources, you need to strategize and figure out how to best use those in terms of developing a position that makes you competitive. We can go to the next slide. All right. So this is just a little bit more definition in terms of generalist, specialist, and undifferentiated. My school currently, one of the reasons that we're focusing on the arts area, one, nobody else is doing it. Two, we're not the largest. Right now we're the third largest international school. So we don't know if we're going to be able to become that large generalist. So maybe being a smaller but more focused school, we can demand a higher tuition, but we're going to attract all the artists in the area. And Slovenia, Ljubljana, is small enough that geography is almost not relevant, because you can drive from one end of the city to the other. If it's not rush hour, you can drive from one end to the other in about 20 minutes. The city itself doesn't even have 1 million people in it. It's maybe 300,000 people in the city, and this is the capital city. So in this case, geography, distance is not really a relevant point. Okay, so when we're talking about the position that a school wants to establish, it's really got to be about your resources. It's got to be about the competitors that you have around you, and should also look at your tuition. What can you do? Not to say we're going to be the top academic school. That kind of aspiration will pit you against all the other top schools. And then how do you really compete? Because if you do become the top school, that's fine, but then you've put all your resources into that, and now you're a specialist in academics, but you're not offering the well-rounded opportunity for students. So if you're so focused on academics, that makes you more of a niche player, and you might be competing against other niche players. Okay, we can go to the next one. Okay, so when you do choose the position that you want to go after, you have to then make sure you're going to have the capabilities to establish and defend that position. And it also establishes the risks. So for example, in my school, when we're talking about the music program, because it's mostly voice, we're not having to worry about buying lots of instruments to establish the music program. And we do have students who are musicians, but they're already established musicians. They've been practicing for some years, so they have their own instruments. So they become, we do have an ensemble, and that's gradually expanding, but those kids come in with their own instruments. Whereas my previous school, they had invested a lot of money into capital into a full spectrum of musical instruments. So basically, they were training musicians from beginner to advanced. But there's a risk in that, because you can't be sure that you're going to have those students to utilize all those resources that you purchased. So that could be a risk. So for us, we're looking more of a vocal program because we have the teacher. We're not going to have to spend a lot of money building up an orchestra set of instruments. And then in terms of growth path, the number of actual musicians in Ljubljana is not very large. So but everybody can sing. Everybody's got a voice.
Yeah, true.
Okay, we can go to the next one. Any other questions at this moment? Okay, we'll go to the next one. So it's important that a school has to not only have a defensible capability, so let's say the music program, but we also have to find out what is the constraint. So for us, if we want to have a music program, we want to have a group of singers who can go out and compete, then what's stopping us? Well, we need to change the curriculum from the younger years to the older years so that we're actually doing the voice training. We can't have a vocal program unless we're doing our own training, because we can't rely on singers just coming to us before we actually have established a reputation. So the constraint there is we've got to change the curriculum. It's got to be more song-based. And we'll go on. I'm going to speed up a little bit so we can get through. Okay. When you are looking at the strengths, so for example, let's say the music program. Yes, music is valuable. Is it rare in our city? Yes, it's rare in our city because nobody else, there's only one school, and that's the government. There's a government arts school, but no other international school and public schools, they don't have a music program that is trying to develop singers. So in this sense, yes, our program is rare. Is our program hard to imitate? Yes, it is, because of the particular teacher that we have. She makes it hard to imitate. And then organize to deliver. Yes, we are building an organization around the music program, or a structure around the music program to support it. So this is actually called the 𝗕𝗲𝘆 is actually part of the resource-based view business approach, or business theory. And so for us, we're doing all of that. Okay. So strategic capability. Here's some thoughts about what a school needs to look at systemically, because just talking about one program is not really enough. For us, we have language support and mother tongue provision. So we actually have a Russian language teacher. We have a Ukrainian language teacher. We have a Chinese language teacher. We have Slovene teachers. And then the whole program, all the languages are teaching based on literature. And so we're building these capacities. So we're not just having one language that we're really focused on. We're focusing on all the languages. So that our mother tongue program is one of our capabilities in addition to music and the arts. So yeah. So here the point about the constraints is often in an organization there's something that's stopping the organization from maximizing their potential, actually getting results. And so the theory of constraints is that you find something that's prohibiting the forward movement, achieving results, and whatever's constraining, and you eliminate that constraint. Once you eliminate that constraint, then you move on to the next identified constraint. Rather than trying to put resources in multiple areas, trying to fix things, you fix the biggest problem first, and then you move on to the next one once you've solved it. This is the theory of constraints. So fix one, that improves the whole system, and then move on to the next constraint. We can go to the next slide now. Okay. The point here is that restraints are not always where we look for them. So you have to see what the issue is. Is it retention, teachers staying or students staying? Do you have the right staff for what you're trying to do? So that's why we look for staff who have arts background, because that can facilitate our programming. Maybe it's the facilities, but what is preventing you from developing a sustainability in the direction that you're trying to move? We can go to the next one. So if you want to be profitable long term, then you have to make sure that you have things that you can defend that other schools or other competitors can't really touch. So this ties into your position in the market. So you choose a position, then you have to make sure you have the capabilities, and then you have to be able to sustainably defend those capabilities. Any questions here? Does anybody know of constraint?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. As you said, sir, the specialist schools need to have a niche. But at the end of the day, it is the academics that matters. How do they can keep a balance between academics and their specialty? Is not this following a niche a great risk also?
Certainly it's a risk, but this is where you need to know the market. I mean, certainly any large market has demand for different things. So if we take our school and are wanting to develop arts as well as a few other things, but we want to develop arts. If nobody else is doing it, then the families that value that are going to look at your school first. So they'll look at that niche school because they value something in addition to the academics.
All right. Thank you very much.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Sort of, okay. All right. So once you establish, okay, which competitive group are we in, or who are the competitors coming in, or we're opening a new school, so which competitive group do we want to be in? And so we know what is our approach in that group, what's going to be our capability and our differentiation. Then we have to plan how to build that capacity, that advantage that we will have in our strategic group. So we can go on. So we decide what is our group that we're going into, what is our position currently, what are our capabilities, what's holding us back. Then you choose, okay, so what are we going to do to build up upon what we have to get to where we want to be? And it's going to be a sequence. You know, schools are typically not organizations that can change overnight. So you've got to plan the long term. How are we going to build this? So it's a year by year. Typically, we build little foundations. We put in the building blocks one by one to get to where we want to be. And this is where there has to be communication between the leadership and the ownership, and say, we're building for the long term. And this is what we're building, and this is how it's different and special, it's unique, and nobody else is going to go in this direction. So yes, if a school's going to go into a niche, yes, academics are the first building block, but it's going to be the speciality that the school has that makes it attractive to a group of parents. And remembering a niche is a relatively small school, is not looking to have a high population. They're looking to have a higher fee-paying population. We can go on to the next slide. All right. So when we're looking at what do we do with our school, are we going to be generalists, or are we going to be specialists, or segment migration, meaning maybe we have to move to another group. Maybe the group we're in we're not going to be competitive. So maybe we move up to another group where we can charge more tuition, but we're going to be specialized in that other group. Or maybe we're going to move down to a lower tuition group, but we're going to be able to, because we already have the facilities and the resources, we're going to have more than everybody else in that lower tuition group. And whatever we've chosen, we have to be figuring out what are the constraints, and we have to fix those constraints one by one. The constraints that are stopping us from establishing our sustainability. Okay, next slide. So some things may be done in a short time period, and some might take a semester. A lot of things might take a year or longer. So if you're building your staff, that may not be something. If you're at an established school, you may not be able to do much in 1 year. It'll take time to build a special capacity. If it's a new school starting out, then that capacity would be the priority when you're recruiting faculty. And we can go to the next one. So finally, kind of repeating, okay, what's your strategic group? Which group do you want to be in, or who are you already competing with? What's your position in your planned position or your current position? What capabilities do you have? How can you utilize those to make yourself different and attractive? And then what are the constraints? What do you have to fix in order to move forward and develop your sustainability, develop your capacity that nobody else can match? So choose your group, choose your position, build that capability, and then defend it, and break down what things are blocking your progress.
Move on to the any leftover question and answer session, Dr. Kenneth?
Can. If people have some more questions, yeah.
Just a comment. Thank you very much, Dr. Kenneth. Really, it was a very beneficial, I would say, session for us as parents also. Here, I just want to add here, you had been talking about competitiveness amongst the schools. What in the high-end schools here, like the private schools in Pakistan. One aspect is glaringly visible between schools, and that is the counseling. Counseling provided by the counselors for the A-level students primarily, so that like the counselor's job in Pakistani schools, in private schools, is to guide them how to get admission in foreign countries, how to write essays, and how to improve their extracurricular activities. Uh, that is one strong area in which few of the schools are very good. They even have MOUs with universities in Western countries, good universities, and their ratio of students going to those universities is more as compared to the other ones. So that is also one aspect here. Just wanted to highlight that. There are so many aspects, of course, that matter when choosing a school. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're very right. A school that has a very strong counseling program and pipeline to either particular countries or particular universities is something that is a strength that parents will appreciate, particularly if they're interested in a specific country where the school has lots of relationships. Now, the thing is, long term, that school has to be aware that other schools may try to build that same capability. And so that capability is not, it may be unique currently, but it can be imitated. It can be developed by other schools who are willing to bring in people who have that experience and that those skills in terms of helping students get into universities. So at some point, the competitors will probably step up their game, step up their operations, and be able to compete with those specific schools that are doing well right now. So those schools that are doing well now with the counseling should be thinking, what do we have to do to maintain our sustainability, maintain our leadership? And it may be something else besides counseling, possibly.
Anybody else?
Yes. Good evening, Dr. Kenneth. It's good to hear your discussion on the topic. And though I am a PhD scholar and a working mom as well, teaching at a university level, so as per my observation, I am asking totally opposite question. You are talking about the promotion of schools and all these things, but as per my experience, personal experience, you can say, and observation, the admissions in schools are reducing. The reason is working parents are unable to cater on this responsibility of pick and drop responsibilities of the kids. And another thing, that schools are not providing enough education, means meeting the criteria of level of the children. So do you see the future of school? As per my perception, school is like after, especially after COVID, there are very low chances of surviving the school education. Do you see any future, like it's still worth making such type of choices? Or, I mean, this discussion can motivate the parents and schools authorities or administrations to regain the importance of school education?
Well, it's not just COVID. COVID probably made things worse in a very short period of time. But as social media and the digital devices are becoming more prevalent, students are becoming less focused, they're more distracted, their attention span, their grit, their willingness to work hard at something is diminishing across the board. So the schools that are going to succeed are the ones that successfully realign or reconfigure their education to really develop that critical thinking. The digital devices are destroying the opportunity of developing critical thinking in students. So the schools that successfully diminish the use of technology in the learning, developing the learning skills, developing the thinking skills, these schools are going to be more successful. Parents need to start understanding that. So a school that starts educating the parents on the lack of individual intellectual development because of technology, these schools will develop a community that understands what's important in education and learning and will appreciate what the schools are doing. The other pressure coming is most countries, their birth rate is dropping. And so you're going to see that schools will continue to struggle in some way because the enrollments will have a peak and then they'll start dropping. You know, in Malaysia's got 3 ethnic groups, basically the Malay, the Indian, and some Pakistani, and the Chinese. And even the Malay population, the birth rate is dropping from where it was. So it won't be long and all 3 populations in Malaysia, the birth rate will drop down to just barely sustaining, not growing. And there's this growth of international schools now in Malaysia. It has gone to the point of saturation. So there are going to be schools that are going to be closing, and that's going to put more pressure on the schools that exist for what do they change in their teaching approach that will keep students coming. Because as the birth rate drops, choice effectively for each family will be larger, and the schools will have more competition.
Please go ahead, Raman, after yeah. Okay. Can I build upon this question? Let me take this question a step further. With the distance learning and the concept of online learning coming up, boosted by COVID and other factors. Now, do you think that in future the physical campuses will be reducing and there will be more space for the online campuses, I would say? And in that case, do you think the strategic factors for this strategic analysis would change or would remain same?
What I see now, and what I see when I read the research that's coming out, is that I believe physical campuses will continue. There'll be a need for those, because if children only learn online, they're actually not going to be well-developed learners. They're not going to have, most of them will not develop the critical thinking skills that can be built in an in-person environment. So I think that the online learning will continue, will be there, but the basics, the fundamentals, the students need to learn on campus, and then they can selectively take that learning online as a support. But the foundational learning will happen on campus, and then further learning, building on the foundation, would be online. So you will probably see more online learning that's productive in the older age groups, in the tertiary and the post and in the workforce. But from primary school through high school, I think that I believe the campuses will still be important.
Thank you. Anybody else, please? That's it? Exhausted? Don't let Dr. Kenneth leave so easily.
Okay. Does that mean we wrap up?
Looks like, Dr. Kenneth. It's already an hour and 15 minutes, but your session was so engaging. Believe me, I didn't feel at all that we crossed the limit. But we still wanted you to be here with us. I'm sure the participants here learned a lot from you. And I'm sure you will remain a permanent feature of the FLAME's online sessions, coming up with different topics, educating us on how the future education and schooling, will move on, and how what's the forecast, what's the outlook. I would say that I don't want to wind up the session, but I have to really, because this is the Friday evening and start of the weekend. All the working professionals here are like they had a long weekend at work. You also, you might be having had a long weekend, and we would like to say a great thank you to you on behalf of the people here and on behalf of the FLAME. Dr. Kenneth, so very kind of you, and I'm pretty thankful to all the participants who took time out on Friday and joined us in this vibrant session. We learned a lot from Dr. Kenneth. I'm really thankful to all of you, and we look forward to seeing you again and again and again. Thank you very much. All the best. Thank you, Dr. Kenneth, once again. Thank you very much. All the best wishes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.